A terrified 7-year-old girl in a soaked pink raincoat sprints straight to the deadliest mafia boss in the diner, locks eyes with him, and whispers 7 words that stop his heart cold. "Can you be my dad? Just for today?" The moment Dominic Viper Russo freezes, headlights slash through the rain outside. A black sedan rolls in slow, predatory, hunting her. One wrong move and she's dead. So why the hell does the most feared killer in the Northeast suddenly decide she's worth burning his entire world for? The rain hammered the windows, turning the neon 24-hour diner sign into a bleeding red smear against the black New Jersey sky. Inside smelled of burnt coffee, grease, and wet boots. A trucker slept with his face in a plate of eggs at the counter. 2 teenagers argued in hushed tones 3 booths down. Now in the back corner booth, back to the wall, eyes scanning every face out of 20 years of street wars and family hits, sat Dominic Viper Russo, 6'3", ink crawling up his neck like warnings, a .45 printed under his leather jacket. He wasn't looking for trouble tonight, but trouble walked in wearing a soaked pink raincoat 2 sizes too big, blonde hair plastered to her forehead, mud on her sneakers. No parent followed. The waitress started toward her, but the girl's wide blue eyes swept the room and locked on Dominic. Most kids ran the other way. She walked straight to him. Her small hands shook as she stopped at his table. Headlights slashed across the glass behind her. A sleek black sedan pulling in slow. She leaned in, voice barely audible over the rain. Can you be my dad? Just for today." The words hit Dominic harder than any bullet he'd ever taken. His coffee mug froze halfway to his lips. For a split second, the entire diner, the trucker, the teenagers, the waitress, the rain, disappeared. All that existed was this tiny, drenched child staring up at him like he was the only thing standing between her and something unspeakable. The door chimed. A man stepped in. Beige trench coat, wire-rimmed glasses, polished shoes, the face of a banker or a school principal. But Dominic's street instinct screamed predator. The man didn't look at the menu. He didn't look at the waitress. He scanned the room with surgical precision. Hunting. Dominic made his choice in a heartbeat. He slid over on the cracked vinyl. "Sit down, princess," he boomed so the whole diner heard. "Daddy told you not to run off without zipping that jacket." The girl scrambled in and buried herself against his side, trembling. "I'm sorry, Daddy," she whispered, the terror in her voice real. The trenchcoat man walked straight to the booth. "That's my daughter, Lily. She runs away and tells stories. I'm Arthur Hale." He flashed a photo. Same girl, but in expensive clothes, hair in ribbons, smiling on a swing set. Dominic noticed the mismatch instantly. New shoes in the picture, worn through toes on her feet right now. The girl's nails dug into Dominic's leather. "He's not my dad," she breathed against his chest. "He took my mommy." Dominic stood, slowly. At full height, he towered over the man like Judgment Day. The fluorescent lights glinted off the brass-knuckled tattoo on his neck. He stepped out of the booth, not placing his body between the girl and Arthur. "She ain't going anywhere with you, pal." Arthur smiled, cold, thin, no warmth behind it. "Mr. Russo, big mistake. You have a sit-down in Atlantic City tonight, don't you? Would be a shame if you never made it." He knew the name. He knew the meeting. Dominic's blood ran ice. Arthur adjusted his glasses, turned on his heel and walked out. Calm. Controlled. He didn't run. He didn't look back. But the black sedan didn't leave. It stayed idling in the lot, headlights pinned on the diner door like a sniper's scope. Dominic looked down at the girl still clinging to his side. She was shaking so hard her teeth chattered. He crouched, brought his face level with hers. "What's your real name, kid?" "Ava," she whispered. "Ava Bennett." He nodded once. "Okay, Ava." Tonight I'm your dad. Tomorrow we figure out the rest." Outside, the sedan's engine revved once, low, impatient. Dominic straightened. His hand dropped to the .45 under his jacket. This wasn't a custody grab. This wasn't a runaway. This was a hunt, and the hunter wasn't leaving without her. She's 7, soaked, alone, and staring into the eyes of a monster like he's her last hope. He's never protected anyone but himself, until now. One whisper changed everything. One lie became truth, and one black sedan is about to force the Viper to choose, his world or hers. He chose her. Will it cost them everything? Dive into the darkness. One click could save Ava tonight. If this hit you in the feels, like if you'd burn the world down for a kid who called you daddy, comment your favorite protector trope, found family, ye grumpy/sunshine, deadly softy. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss when Dominic and Ava's full story drops, because this is only the beginning. One night, one promise, one chance to rewrite a lifetime of violence. Ready to find out if love can survive the bullets? Ava's small body pressed tighter against Dominic's side, her soaked raincoat leaving dark patches on his leather. The diner had gone unnaturally quiet. The clink of silverware stopped. The low hum of the jukebox died mid-chorus. Even the rain seemed to hold its breath. Outside, the black sedan's headlights stayed fixed on the front windows like twin searchlights, patient and merciless. Dominic kept one arm draped around the girl, casual enough to look protective to anyone watching, heavy enough to remind Arthur's man, if he was still watching through the glass, that she wasn't going anywhere. He lowered his voice to a gravel rumble only she could hear. "Talk to me, kid. Slow. Who's after you?" Ava swallowed, her throat working like she was trying not to cry again. "My name's Ava. Ava Bennett." She clutched the worn teddy bear tighter to her chest. "My mommy. She worked for Councilman Richard Hale. She did the books, the real books, not just taxes." Her voice cracked. "She found out they were moving people, kids, through the port, using city contracts. She took pictures, copies of ledgers, a video, everything." Dominic's jaw tightened. Human trafficking through the docks. And he'd heard the rumors, whispers about politicians with clean smiles and dirty money. But hearing it from a 7-year-old whose mother was already dead made it real in a way nothing else could. Ava kept going, words tumbling faster now. "Mommy said if anything happened to her, I had to run. She sewed the proof inside Mr. Bear last night. She told me, 'Run to the lights, baby. Find people. Don't stop until you're safe.'" Her lower lip trembled. "Then the car came. Arthur. He's the councilman's brother. He hurt her. I heard her scream. She told me to go out the back window. I ran through the woods until I saw this diner, the only light." Dominic felt something shift inside his chest, a fracture he hadn't felt since the night his own sister disappeared 20 years ago, and the family code told him to let it go. Mafia rules were simple: family first, outsiders last, never get involved in civilian problems, especially not ones that smelled like federal heat and political suicide. Yet here was this kid, tiny, soaked, clutching a stuffed animal that might be the only thing standing between her and a shallow grave, looking at him like he was the answer to every prayer she'd ever whispered. He glanced at the waitress. Brenda, name tag crooked, stood frozen behind the counter, coffee pot in hand, eyes darting between them and the idling sedan. A trucker at the far end of the counter had stopped eating, fork halfway to his mouth, watching like he knew trouble when he saw it. The headlights never moved. Dominic pulled out his phone under the table. No bars. Storm had knocked out the tower, or someone had jammed it. He cursed silently. Landline on the wall behind Brenda was probably dead too. Then Ava shifted, and something glinted at her neck. A small silver locket shaped like a heart. She hadn't worn it when she first walked in. It must have been tucked inside her coat. Kid, he said quietly, where'd you get that? Mommy gave it to me before Arthur came. Said it was her favorite. Told me never to take it off. Dominic reached over, careful, and popped the locket open with his thumbnail. No photo inside. Just a tiny red light blinking once every 3 seconds, and a microchip no bigger than a grain of rice embedded in the casing. GPS tracker. Arthur hadn't just followed her to the diner. He'd been tracking her the whole time, probably planted it on the mother before the kill, betting the kid would never think to ditch her mother's keepsake. Rage coiled low in Dominic's gut. Cold, familiar, the kind that used to end with bodies in the river. But he swallowed it. Rage got people killed. Control kept them breathing. He snapped the locket shut and slipped it into his pocket. We're leaving. Now. Ava's eyes widened. But, no buts. He pulled a 50 from his wallet, dropped it on the table, then stood, lifting her with him in one smooth motion. She was light as a bird. He unzipped his heavy leather jacket and tucked her inside against his chest, zipping it back up until only her face peeked out above the collar. Body armor. The best kind. She smelled like rain and strawberry shampoo and fear. Brenda started forward. "Sir, you can't just—" "Lock the door behind us," Dominic said, voice low and final. "Yeah, don't open it for anyone but state police, understand?" Brenda nodded, eyes huge. Dominic kicked the door open. Rain lashed his face like needles. The black sedan's engine revved once, warning. He didn't look back. He sprinted across the lot to the armored black Escalade parked in the shadows, boots splashing through puddles. The moment he yanked the driver's door open and slid inside, Ava still zipped against him, the sedan's tires screamed. Dominic hit the ignition. The V8 snarled to life. He looked down at the small face peering up from inside his jacket. Her eyes were wide, trusting, terrified. "Tonight I'm your dad," he said, voice rough. "Tomorrow we'll figure out the rest." Ava nodded once, small fingers curling into his shirt. He dropped the transmission into drive and floored it. The headlights in the rearview mirror flared bright and gave chase. The Escalade's tires bit into the flooded lot, throwing up a rooster tail of water as Dominic floored it. The big SUV lunged forward, headlights slicing through the downpour. In the rearview mirror, the black sedan fish-tailed out of its parking space, headlights flaring like angry eyes. A second vehicle, a heavy black Suburban, peeled out from the far side of the diner, joining the hunt. Ava was still zipped inside Dominic's jacket, her small face pressed against his chest. He could feel her heartbeat hammering like a trapped bird. "Hold on tight, princess," he growled. "This is gonna get rough." He hit the on-ramp to I-95 doing 60, the armored Escalade's weight keeping it planted even as hydroplaning threatened every curve. Rain lashed the windshield in sheets. The wipers fought a losing battle. Behind them, the sedan closed fast. Too fast. Modified engine, Dominic noted. Professional. The first ram came without warning. The sedan surged forward and clipped the Escalade's rear bumper. Metal screeched. Dominic jerked the wheel, counter-steering through the skid, keeping all 4 tires on pavement. Ava let out a sharp cry, fingers digging into his shirt. "Easy," he said, voice steady even as adrenaline flooded his veins. "I've got you." The Suburban moved up on the left, trying to box him in. Dominic swerved right, forcing it to brake hard. Horns blared from civilian traffic, scattering out of the way. He pushed the Escalade to 80, then 90, the big V8 roaring defiance against the storm. Another ram, this time from the Suburban. It caught the passenger side quarter panel, shoving the SUV sideways. Dominic fought the wheel, muscles straining, tires screaming for grip on the slick asphalt. Sparks flew where the rim kissed the guardrail. Ava screamed, high and raw, clutching the teddy bear so hard the seams strained. Dominic glanced at her in the rear view. Her eyes were huge, tears mixing with rain that had leaked through the cracked window seal. Something twisted in his chest, sharp, unfamiliar. Protectiveness. Not the cold loyalty he felt for his crew. Something warmer, something dangerous. He couldn't let them take her. Up ahead, the Atlantic City exit loomed, green sign glowing through the rain. The sedan anticipated it, accelerating to cut him off. Dominic let them think he was going for it. He drifted left, signaling the move, committing just enough to sell the feint. That the sedan bought it, lunged to block the lane. At the last possible second, Dominic slammed the brakes, downshifted violently, and wrenched the wheel right. The Escalade's rear end snapped around in a controlled drift, tires howling. He cut across 3 lanes, narrowly missing a semi, and shot down the flooded service road that branched into the Pine Barrens. The sedan couldn't react in time. It overshot, brakes locking, then spun wildly on the wet highway. The Suburban tried to follow. Too late. Both vehicles slammed into the guardrail in a crunch of metal and shattered glass. Headlights winked out. Steam rose from crumpled hoods. Dominic didn't slow down. He killed the Escalade's lights and plunged deeper into the trees. The service road narrowed to a single muddy lane, branches clawing at the paint. Water rushed across the dips, deep enough to swamp lesser vehicles. The armored SUV plowed through, suspension groaning. After 2 miles of twisting darkness, he spotted it. An abandoned hunting cabin half swallowed by pines, roof sagging, windows boarded. He killed the engine, coasted the last 50 yards on momentum, and rolled to a stop behind a thick stand of trees. Silence rushed in, broken only by the hiss of rain on hot metal and Ava's ragged breathing. He unzipped the jacket. Ava tumbled out onto the seat, legs shaky, teddy bear still crushed against her chest. She looked up at him, eyes luminous in the faint dashboard glow. "Are they gone?" she whispered. "For now." Dominic scanned the mirrors, the tree line, nothing but rain and shadows. "We're safe, for now." He reached over, brushed wet hair from her forehead with a gentleness that surprised even him. "You did good, kid. Real good." Ava managed a tiny nod, then buried her face in the teddy bear again. Outside, the storm howled on. Inside the Escalade, Dominic Russo, the man who'd buried every soft feeling 20 years ago, felt the first real crack in 20 years widen into something he couldn't name. He wasn't running from this anymore. He was in it. Dominic killed the engine and sat in the sudden silence, listening. Only rain drumming on the roof and the distant hiss of wind through pines. No sirens, no headlights sweeping the trees. Yet. He eased Ava out of the jacket and carried her through the downpour to the cabin door. The padlock was rusted. One sharp twist of his wrist snapped it. Inside smelled of mildew, old wood, and long-ago campfires. He kicked the door shut, slid a heavy workbench across it, and then dragged 2 metal shelves to reinforce the barricade. Not enough to stop determined men with tools, but enough to buy seconds. Ava stood shivering in the middle of the dark room, teddy bear dangling from one hand. Dominic found a pile of mildewed blankets in the corner, shook them out, and wrapped her in the least disgusting one. He knelt, tucking the edges tight around her small frame. "You're safe here," he said, "for a little while." She looked up at him with those enormous blue eyes. "They're still coming, aren't they?" He didn't lie. "Probably. But they'll have to get through me first." He moved to the single grimy window, cracked the board enough to scan the tree line, then checked his .45. Full magazine, one in the chamber. Spare mag in his pocket. No rifle, no backup piece. Sloppy, but he hadn't planned on babysitting a witness tonight. Ava crawled under the blankets like a burrow, only her face showing. "You're really scary," she whispered. "But you're nice scary, like a guard dog." Dominic almost smiled. Almost. "Guard dogs bite when they have to." She studied him a long moment. "My name's Ava. What's yours?" "Dominic, but most people call me Viper." Her brow furrowed. "Viper? Like a snake?" "Yeah, like a snake." He sat against the wall opposite her, knees drawn up, gun resting across his thigh. "Got the name in the Marines. I was good at getting in close, striking fast, disappearing before anyone knew what hit them. After I got out, the name stuck." Ava pulled the blanket higher. "Do you have kids?" The question landed like a punch he hadn't braced for. "Had," he said quietly. "One, a daughter. Out long time ago?" Ava's eyes widened. "What happened?" Dominic stared at the floorboards. "Her mother got mixed up with the wrong people, my people. I was away on business when they came for her. I got back too late. They took them both. Said it was a message." His voice stayed flat, but the knuckles on the gun whitened. "I hunted every one of them down. Didn't bring my girl back, didn't bring her mother back. Just made sure no one would try it again." Silence stretched between them, broken only by rain on tin. "I'm sorry," Ava whispered. Dominic looked at her. Really looked. Small, scared, clutching a teddy bear that held proof capable of burning down half the city's power structure, and still apologizing to him. "Not your fault, kid." She scooted closer under the blankets until her head rested against his knee. "So you're not going to let them take me, are you? Daddy Viper?" The word slipped out accidental, soft, like she hadn't meant to say it aloud. Dominic's throat closed. He didn't correct her. "No," he said roughly. "I'm not." He pulled his phone again, no signal, and cursed under his breath. Then he remembered the burner in the glove box. He slipped outside long enough to grab it, rain soaking him in seconds, and ducked back in. One bar flickered. He dialed the only number he trusted. It rang once. "Boss?" Tony's voice, alert even at midnight. "Tony, bring every soldier. I got a kid and a war on my hands." A beat of silence. Then, "Location?" "Old hunting cabin off the Pine Barrens Service Road, mile marker 14, bring heavy, they're pros." 20 minutes, maybe less. "Make it less." The line went dead. That Dominic killed the faint glow of the phone and plunged the cabin into total darkness. He moved to the window again, .45 in hand, and settled beside Ava. She'd curled into a ball under the blankets, teddy bear tucked under her chin. He rested a hand lightly on her shoulder. Awkward, unused to gentleness. She didn't flinch. Instead, she reached up, small fingers finding his, and held on. Outside, the rain hammered harder. Somewhere down the muddy road, engines growled in the distance, low at first, then louder, closer. They were coming. Dominic tightened his grip on the gun. And for the first time in 20 years, the Viper wasn't hunting alone. He had something worth protecting. That tap-tap signal? It's not just a code anymore, it's a promise. A broken Mafia enforcer just found something he thought he'd buried forever. And now he's ready to burn everything down to keep it safe. If this moment hit you, if you believe even the darkest hearts can protect the innocent, hit the like button, type Guardian Dad below in the comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what happens when the whole crew rides in. Stay with me. 22 minutes. Dominic counted them in his head while the rain beat the tin roof like automatic fire. Every second stretched, thick with the smell of wet pine and old wood. Ava huddled under the blankets beside him, small breaths quick and shallow. He kept the .45 across his lap, finger indexed along the frame, eyes locked on the single-boarded window. No movement outside yet, just darkness and the steady hiss of water through the trees. Yet he glanced down at her. She hadn't spoken since he'd made the call, but her fingers still clutched the teddy bear like a lifeline. The kid was tough, tougher than most grown men he'd known, but she was still 7, still scared out of her mind. "Hey," he said softly, "look at me." Ava lifted her head, eyes glassy in the faint moonlight leaking through the cracks. "When my family gets here," he told her, "they're gonna make a lot of noise. Engines, doors, voices. Might sound bad, but it's good noise. Understand? She nodded once. He tapped 2 fingers against his chest. Quick, deliberate. Tap, tap. This is our signal. You hear it? You know it's me or one of mine. You see it? You know you're safe. Got it? Ava mimicked the motion against her own chest. Tap, tap. Her small hand shook, but she got it right the first time. A good girl. He rested his palm on her head for a second. Awkward, unused, but real. Whatever happens, stay low. Don't come out until you hear that signal. Promise me. Promise, she whispered. Silence returned, heavier now. Then it started. First a low vibration through the floorboards, then a growl, deep, mechanical, rising from the valley below. Not one engine, not two, a pack. The sound built like thunder rolling uphill, shaking loose droplets from the roof beams. Headlights pierced the tree line, dozens of them, cutting white beams through the rain. Black SUVs, armored Suburbans, a couple of up-armored pickups with reinforced bumpers and darkened windows. They tore up the muddy service road in tight formation, tires chewing ruts, engines snarling in unison. 20-plus vehicles, maybe more. But the Russo family didn't do half measures. The convoy fanned out in the clearing, engines idling to a menacing rumble. Doors opened in sequence. Men stepped out. Hard men in dark coats and tactical vests, faces familiar to Dominic from 100 jobs. Tony first, broad-shouldered, shotgun already in hand. Then Frankie, Vinny, Marco, the twins, each one carrying long guns, pistols on hips, eyes scanning for threats. No panic, no hesitation, just disciplined readiness. Dominic exhaled through his nose. They'd come fast. They'd come loaded. They'd come for him. Ava peeked out from the blankets. Is that your family? Yeah, kid. That's them. Outside, the last vehicle, a matte black Tahoe, stopped at the edge of the clearing. Doors opened. Arthur stepped out first, beige trench coat soaked dark, wire-rimmed glasses fogged. Behind him, and 6 mercenaries in black tactical gear, plate carriers loaded, rifles up, suppressed ARs, red dot optics glowing faintly in the rain, professionals, cleaners, the kind who didn't leave witnesses. Arthur raised a hand, palm out. His voice carried over the idling engines, calm and cultured. Mr. Russo, let's keep this simple. Hand over the girl. No one else needs to get hurt tonight. Dominic stood slowly, joints popping from the cold. He tucked the .45 into his waistband, visible, ready, and moved to the door. Ava grabbed his sleeve. Don't go out there, she breathed. He crouched, met her eyes. I have to. But remember the signal. Tap, tap. You'll hear it. She nodded, tears spilling again. Dominic straightened, shoved the workbench aside, and kicked the door open. Rain hit him like a slap. He stepped out alone into the downpour. A boot sinking into mud, leather jacket slick and heavy. 20-plus of his men fanned out behind him in a loose semicircle, silent, weapons low but ready. A wall of loyalty, a promise of violence if it came to that. Arthur's mercenaries raised their rifles in unison, red dots dancing across Dominic's chest. Arthur smiled thinly. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Dominic walked forward 5 paces, stopping in the center of the clearing. Rain streamed off his beard, down his neck. He pulled the .45, held it low at his side, not pointed, not yet. Then he spoke, voice carrying clear over the storm. Hand over the girl? He repeated. Not happening. Arthur's smile vanished. Last chance, Viper. Dominic's eyes never left him. Funny, he said. Nay, I was about to say the same thing. He raised the pistol in one smooth motion, sighting center mass on Arthur. The clearing went still, rain the only sound. Then Arthur shouted, sharp and final, Hand over the girl! The clearing erupted. Arthur's shout, Hand over the girl! Still hung in the rain when the first suppressed shot cracked from a mercenary's rifle. The round sparked off the cabin door frame an inch from Dominic's ear. He didn't flinch. He charged. Boots churning mud, leather jacket flapping, he crossed the 20 yards in 4 heartbeats and slammed into Arthur like a freight train. They hit the ground hard, rolling through slurry and pine needles. Arthur was fast, trained, drove a knee into Dominic's ribs, clawed for the backup knife in his boot. Dominic caught the wrist, twisted until bone cracked. Arthur screamed, the sound swallowed by the storm. Around them, the Russo crew moved like shadows with purpose. No wild spray, no panic fire. They closed the distance in a textbook hug-the-belt maneuver, getting inside the rifle's effective range so the long guns became useless clubs. Tony took the left flank mercenary down with a shotgun butt to the temple. Frankie and the twins flanked right, chains whipping out to snag rifle barrels and yank them skyward. Vinny tackled another from behind, driving him face-first into the mud. Marco zip-tied wrists before the man could even gasp. Gunfire popped in controlled bursts, suppressed rounds from the mercenaries answered by precise return fire from the crew. One merc tried to break and run. A single shot from Tony's shotgun took his leg out. He dropped screaming. The rest were swarmed in seconds. Dominic straddled Arthur in the muck, rain streaming off his beard. Arthur bucked, slashed with his free hand. Dominic blocked, then drove an elbow into the man's jaw. Crack. Blood sprayed. Arthur's glasses snapped in half. Dominic grabbed the trenchcoat lapels, yanked him up, and headbutted him. Nose cartilage shattered. Arthur's eyes rolled. "For the mother," Dominic growled. He hammered a fist down, once, twice. Arthur's face caved, lips split, teeth broken. On the third swing, Dominic stopped, fist raised, knuckles bleeding. Arthur wheezed through ruined teeth, one eye swelling shut. "Enough," Tony barked from 10 feet away. "We need him talking." Dominic exhaled hard, rain mixing with the blood on his face. He shoved Arthur down, planted a knee on his chest, and zip-tied his wrists with the flex cuffs Tony tossed him. 90 seconds, maybe less. The clearing fell quiet except for the rain and the low groans of the downed mercenaries. The crew moved with practiced efficiency. Rifles collected, weapons cleared, bodies dragged to the center and secured. No one spoke. They didn't need to. Dominic stood, chest heaving, and looked toward the cabin. Ava's small face was pressed to the cracked window board, eyes wide, hands clamped over her ears. When she saw him, she lowered them slowly. He tapped his chest twice, tap, tap. She mirrored it through the glass, tap, tap. He nodded once. Then he walked to where Arthur lay wheezing in the mud, knelt, and ripped the teddy bear from the mercenary's belt, where one of them had snatched it during the fight. Arthur's good eye widened. "No." Dominic ignored him. He pulled his knife, sliced the seam along the bear's back with surgical precision, and reached inside. Stuffing parted. His fingers closed around a small, plastic-wrapped object. He pulled it free, a USB drive, no bigger than a thumbnail, taped tight in waterproof plastic. He held it up to the faint light leaking from the Tahoe's headlights. Rain streaked the plastic, but the drive was intact. Tony stepped up beside him, breathing hard. "That it?" Dominic nodded. "Nuclear." Arthur coughed blood, voice ragged. "You have no idea what you just started." Dominic looked down at him. "I know exactly what I started." He pocketed the drive, then hauled Arthur up by the collar and dragged him toward the nearest SUV. The crew fell in around them, silent, soaked, victorious. Ava opened the cabin door a crack, blanket still wrapped around her shoulders. She stared at the scene, mercenaries bound in the mud, Dominic's men standing guard like sentinels, rain washing blood into the earth. Dominic met her eyes across the clearing. He tapped his chest again. Tap, tap. She stepped out into the rain, small and soaked and unafraid now, and ran straight to him. They dragged Arthur into the back of the lead Tahoe, zip ties cutting into his wrists, blood still leaking from his ruined face. Dominic slid in beside him, door slamming shut like a coffin lid. The rest of the crew worked outside, dragging bodies into vehicles, collecting brass, wiping down anything that might hold prints. Rain kept falling, washing evidence into the mud. Arthur slumped against the seat, breathing wet and ragged, one eye swollen shut, the other fixed on Dominic with a mix of hate and fear. "Yeah, you think this ends here?" he rasped. "You just signed your death warrant. The councilman has friends, high places. You're a dead man walking." Dominic leaned forward, elbows on knees, voice low. "Talk. Who's the network? How deep does it go?" Arthur laughed, short, bloody. "You really want to know? Fine. Richard Hale runs it. Port Authority contracts. Containers come in labeled agricultural equipment. Kids inside. Mostly Eastern Europe, some domestic runaways. Buyers are politicians, CEOs, foreign nationals. Money cycles through shell companies in Delaware and the Caymans. I clean up the loose ends. Always have." Dominic's expression didn't change. "Proof?" Arthur jerked his chin toward the USB in Dominic's pocket. "That drive? Photos, ledgers, video of Hale handing off a payment to a cartel contact last month, names, dates, or account numbers. Enough to bury him for life, and half the city council with him." Dominic studied the broken man a long moment. Then he pulled out the burner phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. His media contact at the Philadelphia Inquirer, an investigative reporter who owed him a favor from a story that never ran. "Malone," the voice answered, wary. "This better be good, it's late." "Check your secure drop in 20 minutes, Dominic said. "You'll want this one. Front page, national. Don't ask questions, just run it." He hung up, then dialed another burner line. The FBI tip line in Newark. No greeting, just, "Anonymous package incoming. Human trafficking. Councilman Richard Hale. Evidence attached. Act fast." He ended the call, plugged the USB into a rugged laptop Tony passed through the window, and then copied the files twice, once to an encrypted thumb drive, once to a cloud drop Malone could access. Every click felt final, irreversible. Outside, the crew finished sanitizing, spent casings collected, blood diluted with rain, vehicles repositioned to look like they'd never stopped. No trace left but tire ruts that would wash away by morning. Dominic stared at the glowing screen, the damning files transferring bite by bite. This wasn't just protecting a kid anymore. This was burning bridges. The old life, the sit-downs, the rackets, the code that said never involve civilians, never cross into federal territory, gone in one night. He'd just painted a target on his back the size of the Northeast. The families wouldn't forgive this. The feds wouldn't forget it. And yet, looking at the drive in his hand, he felt no regret, only a strange and hollow clarity. He stepped out of the Tahoe into the rain. Ava waited by the cabin door, blanket dragging in the mud, teddy bear dangling from one hand. She'd watched everything, every punch, every zip tie, every body dragged away, and hadn't run, hadn't screamed, just waited. Dominic walked over, crouched so they were eye level. Rain dripped off his brow onto her cheek. "You okay?" he asked. She nodded slowly. You kept your promise." He swallowed. "Yeah, I did." Ava stepped forward, hesitant, then leaned against him. Her small arms wrapped around his neck. She buried her face in his wet leather jacket and whispered, so quiet he almost missed it. "Best dad ever." The words landed like a round to the chest. Dominic froze, arms hovering, unsure. Then he closed them around her, gentle, careful, like she might break. Or rain soaked them both. He rested his chin on top of her head, felt her small heartbeat against his ribs. For the first time in 20 years, the Viper didn't feel like a killer. He felt like a father. Tony approached, voice low. "We're cleaned up." "Where to?" Dominic looked north toward Maine, toward the aunt Ava had mentioned in her frantic story. "We get her to family, then we disappear for a while." Tony nodded. "Convoy's ready." Dominic lifted Ava, settled her against his chest, and carried her to the Tahoe. She fell asleep almost instantly, cheek against his shoulder, teddy bear tucked under her chin. He slid into the back seat, kept one arm around her, the other holding the drive that would end a trafficking empire and probably his own freedom. As the convoy rolled out, engines low, lights off, by disappearing into the storm, Dominic stared through the rain-streaked window. The old life was over. Whatever came next, he'd face it with a 7-year-old girl who'd called him Dad. And for the first time in decades, that felt like enough. The convoy rolled north under a gray dawn, 20 black vehicles strung out like a funeral procession in reverse. Quiet, purposeful, protective. Dominic kept Ava in the back seat of the lead Tahoe, buckled tight beside him. She'd fallen asleep against his shoulder before they crossed the state line into New York, teddy bear still clutched to her chest. He didn't move her. For the first time in years, the weight of another human against him didn't feel like a liability. It felt like purpose. They avoided major highways after the first toll plaza. Smaller roads, back ways, less cameras, fewer eyes. Connecticut came and went in rolling hills and quiet farmland. Massachusetts brought thicker traffic and sharper turns. Dominic drove in silence most of the time, one hand on the wheel, the other resting near Ava's small knee like a shield. First stop, a roadside dairy bar off Route 1 in Rhode Island, just past the state line. The crew fanned out, 2 men on perimeter, 2 inside ordering, the rest idling engines in the lot. Dominic carried Ava inside on his hip. She woke blinking at the neon ice cream cone sign. "Vanilla?" he asked. She shook her head. "Chocolate, with sprinkles. Mommy said sprinkles make everything better." He ordered 2 cones, double chocolate for her, plain vanilla for him. They sat at a picnic table under a dripping awning while rain pattered on the metal roof. Ava licked chocolate from her fingers and started humming a tune, soft and off-key. "What's that?" Dominic asked. "You Are My Sunshine." Mommy sang it when I couldn't sleep. She sang the first verse in a whispery voice, missing half the words. Dominic listened, cone forgotten in his hand. When she finished, he cleared his throat. "Sing it again. I'll try to keep up." She beamed. They sang it together, his gravel rumble clashing with her high, sweet notes, until the crew started signaling it was time to move. Ava laughed when he got the chorus wrong. For a moment, the rain sounded softer. Second stop, an empty gravel lot behind a closed gas station in southern Maine. Dominic pulled over, killed the engine. The convoy idled a respectful distance back. He lifted Ava onto his lap in the driver's seat, hands over hers on the wheel. Pretend?" he said. "You're driving." She gripped the wheel, tiny fingers barely reaching the bottom curve. "Vroom," she whispered, then giggled. "Faster, Daddy Viper." He made engine noises low in his throat, shifted imaginary gears. She steered wildly, laughing until tears squeezed from her eyes. When she leaned back against his chest, he wrapped one arm around her, steadying her like she was the most precious cargo he'd ever carried. By the second evening, the convoy reached the quiet coastal road outside Portland. White clapboard houses, lobster traps stacked on lawns, hydrangeas blooming purple and blue in the last light. Dominic slowed as they approached the address Ava had given. Small yellow cottage, white picket fence, garden neat and bright despite the drizzle. A woman waited on the porch, mid-30s, blonde like Ava, the eyes already red from crying. Ava's Aunt Karen. She stepped forward as the Tahoe rolled to a stop. Dominic killed the engine. The crew stayed back, engines idling low, giving him space. Ava unbuckled herself, hesitated, then looked up at him. "Is this goodbye?" "For now," he said. His throat felt raw. "You'll be safe here. That's what matters." She climbed out. Karen met her at the gate, dropped to her knees, and pulled her into a fierce hug. Ava hugged back, but her eyes kept flicking to Dominic. Karen stood, holding Ava's hand, and walked toward him. "Thank you," she said, voice thick. "I don't know who you are, but you brought her home. That's everything." Dominic nodded once. "She's a good kid. Take care of her." Ava pulled free and ran back to him. She threw her arms around his legs, face pressed to his thigh. "Don't go." He knelt, brought her eye level. "I have to." "But you remember the signal?" She tapped her chest twice. Tap, tap. He mirrored it. "Anytime you need me, you find a biker. Show them this." He unpinned the small silver Russo family crest from his jacket and fastened it to her raincoat. "They'll find me. Promise." Ava touched the pin, tears spilling. "I love you, Daddy Viper. Even if it was just for 2 days." The words cracked something final inside him. He pulled her close, hugged her tight enough to feel her heartbeat, then let go before he couldn't. "Go on," he whispered. "Your aunt's waiting." She backed away slowly, eyes locked on his, then turned and ran into Karen's arms. Karen lifted her, waved once, and carried her inside. The screen door closed with a soft click. Dominic stood in the rain a long moment, now staring at the yellow cottage until the porch light flicked on and the curtains twitched. Then he walked back to the Tahoe, climbed in, and started the engine. The convoy rolled out. Quiet, disciplined, disappearing into the dusk. He didn't look back. He couldn't. The screen door had barely closed behind Ava when it flew open again. She ran back down the porch steps, pink raincoat flapping, sneakers splashing through shallow puddles. Karen called after her but didn't follow. Ava was already halfway to Dominic. He hadn't moved, still stood in the rain beside the Tahoe, shoulders squared, face unreadable. Ava stopped inches from him, chest heaving, eyes shining with fresh tears. "I forgot something," she said. Before he could ask, she threw her arms around his neck and hugged him as hard as a 7-year-old could. He knelt instinctively, catching her, arms closing around her small frame. She buried her face in his wet leather jacket and whispered against his ear, "You were the best dad I ever had, even if it was just for today." The words landed like a quiet detonation. Dominic's throat closed. He hugged her back, careful, fierce, then pulled away just enough to look at her. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out the small silver Russo family pin, a stylized eagle clutching a shield, the same one every made man wore under his cut. He pinned it to the collar of her raincoat right over her heart. "Anytime you need me," he said, voice rough. "You show this to anyone who rides. Any biker, any bar, any road. They'll find me. You understand?" Ava touched the pin with trembling fingers. "I understand." Karen stepped forward then, eyes wet, and gently took Ava's hand. "Come on, sweetheart. Let's get you inside." Ava looked back once more, long, searching, then let herself be led away. The door closed softly behind them. The porch light stayed on, warm against the dusk. Dominic stood there until the curtains stopped moving. Then he climbed into the Tahoe. The convoy rolled out in silence, taillights fading into the rain. 10 years later, Dominic Russo lived quietly now on a stretch of back road outside Albany. No more sit-downs, no more wars. He'd walked away the night he delivered Ava, quietly handed the keys of the empire to Tony, paid off the right people, and disappeared into the gray area between legend and ghost. The feds had raided Hale's offices the next morning. The councilman took a life sentence. The trafficking ring unraveled. Headlines called it one of the biggest busts in decades. No one ever connected it to a retired Mafia boss and a little girl in a pink raincoat. He rode now for pleasure, a black road king, no plates, no hurry. The silver in his beard matched the chrome. The scars on his knuckles had faded to white lines. The mail came on a crisp October afternoon. A single cream envelope, no return address, postmarked Portland, Maine. He opened it at the kitchen table. Inside, a law school graduation invitation, Columbia University. Ava Bennett, valedictorian, class of 2036. A photograph slipped out. A beautiful young woman in cap and gown, blue eyes bright, smile wide and fearless. She looked like her mother. She looked like hope. Tucked beside the photo was a handwritten note on thick cream stationery. Dear Daddy Viper, I'm starting at Columbia Law in the fall. I want to be the kind of prosecutor who protects kids like I was. Kids who run into the rain looking for one safe place. I still have the pin. I still wear it on my robe during oral arguments, my good luck charm. Everyone thinks it's a family crest. They're not wrong. I still tell people about the scary man in the leather jacket who became my guardian angel on the worst night of my life. Thank you for saying yes when the whole world would have said no. Thank you for being my dad, even if it was only for 2 days. I love you. Always. Your daughter for 1 day, and every day after, Ava Dominic read it twice. Then he stood, carried the photo and note to the wall above his desk. Beside a faded diner security still, grainy black and white of a terrified little girl pointing at danger, while a giant of a man held her like she was his whole world, he pinned the new picture. The two images hung side by side, past and promise. He stared at them a long time. Then he walked outside. The rain that had soaked them both 10 years ago was long gone. Sunlight slanted through the pines, warm on his face. He straddled the Road King, fired the engine, and let the deep rumble fill his chest. For the first time in years, he smiled, small, real, unguarded. Heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear black leather and carry a .45. And sometimes they just say yes when a little girl asks them to be her dad for a day. If this story touched you, if it reminded you that even the hardest hearts can choose light, that family isn't always blood, that one moment of courage can rewrite a lifetime, hit that like button right now. Drop Guardian Dad in the comments if you're on Team Viper. Share this with someone who needs to believe second chances are real, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories, because stories like this deserve to be told, and people like Ava deserve to be remembered. Thanks for riding along. I'll see you in the next one.